Hey friends! Who's ready to continue on our international tour of theater history? I know I am. I got my bags packed, got my sunscreen ready, and I got my sunglasses on. Woo! We won't be needing the time machine today because we're going to still be in the same time period as our previous two lessons, Roman theater to the Middle Ages and Intro to Eastern Theater. But we will be traveling across the world to several new places. Hop on that camel because we'll be looking at 3 different forms of theater from around the world, including traditional theater in Africa, Khayāl al-ẓill in Egypt, and Inti Raymi and or storytelling traditions in South America. By the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to define, describe the background, and list the elements of these different artistic forms. Oh, we gotta go, or this caravan is gonna leave us behind. Yo, wait for me! Welcome back to ancient Africa. We are in a place of advanced metallurgy and tools, including nails, bronze weapons, and furnaces that burn hotter than those of the Romans. Theater here takes many different forms, but we're going to focus on traditional theater in Africa. Traditional theater is the oldest form of African theater. Because it dates before colonialism, traditional theater has a different structure than typical European theatrical forms. Traditional theater in Africa focuses on indigenous costumes rather than a specific script or story. Now, it's really important for us to remember, Africa is not a monolith. It is a continent with 54 different countries, each with their own unique cultures and costumes, which influence their theatrical forms. For instance, in Southern Africa, the Khoisan people told ritual dramas with dances. Spectacular masquerades were held in Sierra Leone, Nigeria, and Ghana. Kotewa in Mali included music, chanting, dancing, and short skits and plays with audience participation. Fun fact, Kotewa is still being performed today in Mali. Although all 54 countries in Africa have their own distinct cultures, there are some similarities in their theatrical backgrounds. Traditional African theater was not performed on a specific date or time. Rather, it was associated with major events like birth, hunts, marriage, death, initiation rites, and more. Sometimes, theater was associated with daily life, like telling stories around a fire, while other times it was intended for important religious or social functions. Traditional African theater was passed down orally, meaning nothing was written. There were no scripts or playwrights. Instead of focusing on one person's words on a page, traditional African theater came from the culture and customs of the community. Communal histories and myths that share important morals were told. Many times, the themes of these stories criticized corruption, kind of like Taichung in Korea. And many of the elements of traditional African theater are also similar to Taichung, such as character types, music, and dance. In Kotewa, characters were not seen as individuals. Rather, they were general character types, such as the dishonest merchant or greedy miser. These character types were used to mock political and social targets, such as corrupt leaders. Many forms of traditional African theater stressed music. Songs were an important part of the performance, and drumming was the most dominant musical accompaniment. Usually, a master drummer would take the lead and set the rhythms. Finally, dance was another essential element of traditional African theater. Sometimes the dance was accompanied with costumes and masks. Often the dance was communal. Everyone would participate, and there was little to distinguish between the audience, the performance, and the creators. Whoa! That also sounds like Taichung. Maybe you can see how many similarities you can find in the PDF for this lesson. But before you go there, we have to finish our travels. And our next stop is still on the continent of Africa, as we look at Khayāl al-ẓill in Egypt. Hello, Egypt, home to the famous Cleopatra, the Great Sphinx, and of course, the pyramids. Here in Cairo is where Khayāl al-ẓill reached its peak. Khayāl al-ẓill translates to either shadows of the imagination or shadows of fancy. Basically, Khayāl al-ẓill is shadow puppetry with flat, cut-out figures moved in front of a light source so that their shadows are projected onto a screen. Now, shadow puppetry was actually quite common around the world in places like China, Southeast Asia, and India before coming to Egypt. Khayāl al-ẓill is thought to have begun in the 10th century in Cairo. and became extremely popular in the 13th and 14th centuries. Although it was performed year-round, Khayāl al-ẓill was especially in high demand during Ramadan, a month of fasting, reflection, prayer, and community observed by Muslims. During Ramadan, Muslims do not eat while the sun is up. During the evening, they have a meal called iftar at sundown. In Cairo, during the 13th and 14th centuries, after iftar, people would enjoy Khayāl al-ẓill. Usually, the plays were performed on stages made from canvas and wood. These stages were portable and could be taken to cafes, tents, or even the larger rooms in a house. The puppets were generally about 12 inches tall and made from stiffened, stretched camel hide. They were attached to long wooden rods so that they could be animated from behind by moving the sticks. A bright lantern was put behind the puppets and in front of the puppeteer to cast the shadows onto a cloth screen that the audience sat in front of. Khayāl al-ẓill's plays had multiple topics, from traditional fables to histories to political satires. Many were serial stories, split up into sections so that the audience would have to come back night after night to hear the entire tale. Cairo's most successful Khayāl al-ẓill playwright was Ibn Daniel, who was originally from Iraq. 3 of his plays still exist today and are the only complete examples of Arabic drama from the Middle Ages to survive today. The elements of Khayāl al-ẓill include the Shadow Master, the stock principal character, and the other creators. The Shadow Master moved the characters according to the script. The Shadow Master could make the puppets fight, dance, or turn somersaults, often accompanied by the music of flutes, drums, and tambourines. Sometimes there were special effects too, like smoke, fire, or thunder. Usually, the Shadow Master would know at least 28 plays, one for each night of Ramadan. Wow! Can you imagine memorizing 28 plays? Whew! The Shadow Master would add songs and poetry and try to change voices for different characters. Sometimes the Shadow Master would even make animal noises or bird noises. The more sounds and voices the Shadow Master could make, the more popular they would become. At the end, the Shadow Master would always remind the audience to come back the next day to see more. Now, Khayāl al-ẓill plays had a variety of topics, but usually had one thing in common: a stock principal character called the muhadim. This character was similar to a narrator, or the chorus in those Greek plays that we learned about earlier. The muhadim would always appear with a stick, like he was commanding the other puppets. Often, he would begin with the dance and then introduce the other characters. And, speaking of others, that's our last element of Khayāl al-ẓill, other creators. For a successful Khayāl al-ẓill performance, several other artisans were required: tinsmiths, lantern makers, candle makers, tinkerers who build mechanical devices, and rope, leather, and woodworkers all helped to create the necessary items to depict elaborate scenes, from ships on the sea, to animals in their habitats, to massive battles. The cutter was also equally important because they created the puppet characters. They used special scissors or knives to cut out and then stitch the puppets from camel leather and sometimes fish skin. The megarists pierced each puppet to attach the wooden rods. They inserted the sticks so that the puppets would move the right way. Finally, the actual performers were respected as a class of public entertainers and sometimes became famous and wealthy. Huh, sounds kind of familiar. And while we're talking about familiar, it's time to get off our familiar camels and switch to some llamas as we go into Inti Raymi and oral storytelling traditions in South America. Welcome to Peru, once the heart of the Incan Empire, which stretched from Colombia all the way down to Chile. In its capital, Cusco, the Incas celebrated every year their most important religious and theatrical festival, Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun. Remember earlier in this unit when we talked about the Greek festival of Dionysus? Well, similar to that, Inti Raymi was held in honor of Inti, the Inca sun god, and it was meant to guarantee a good harvest, protect the people's health, prevent disasters, and celebrate the coming of the new year. The festival was also said to symbolize the mythical origins of the Incas, so it was a huge deal. For 15 days, this festival included chanting, marching musicians, dances with colorful costumes, animal offerings, and oral storytellers. Similar to African traditional theater, oral storytelling was vital for the Incas. Without a written language, the Incas relied heavily on storytellers to pass down their oral history. so the empire employed hundreds of them to memorize the Incas' legends and myths and travel throughout the land passing down these messages to the people. Although Incan theater had close ties to religion, it was not exclusive to religious festivities. Incan storytellers, the Puquiscuya, also provided the public with dramatic and heroic tales called huanca, as well as comedic and day-to-day stories called aranhuay. The most famous plays that remain from the Incan Empire are Ollantay, considered to be the oldest expression of the Quechua language, the language spoken in the Incan Empire, and the tragedies of Uzcapaucar and Atahualpa. Since we're in Peru, I'm going to check out Machu Picchu, but before we hop back onto our llamas, let's review what we learned today, including traditional theater in Africa, Khayāl al-ẓill in Egypt, and Inti Raymi and oral storytelling traditions in South America. You are now able to define, describe the background, and list the elements of these different artistic forms. In our next lesson, we will explore the Italian Renaissance and learn all about Commedia dell'arte. So make sure to check out the PDF and practice questions before then. Until then, remember, in theater, like in life, the limit is your imagination.